Rain lashed Lena Jackson's face as Edward Sterling's voice carved through the Chicago mansion's silence. "Get out! You don't belong!" Icy water from his flung glass burned her skin, but Lena stood firm, bracing Noah's trembling legs. His small hand squeezed hers, his glare shouting, "She's my friend!" The rain was coming down steady on the sprawling Sterling estate, a sleek modern mansion tucked into the leafy suburbs of Chicago, where every house screamed money and nobody asked questions about who kept it all running. Lena Jackson, a 26-year-old black housekeeper, moved through her morning routine like a ghost. Dusting marble countertops, fluffing pillows, making sure the place looked like a magazine spread for Edward Sterling, the tech mogul who ran Sterling Medical, a company churning out cutting-edge health gadgets. Lena kept her head down, her braids tucked under a scarf, her sneakers barely making a sound on the hardwood. She was used to being invisible, just another pair of hands in a world of wealth. But in the living room, surrounded by floor-to-ceiling windows fogged with rain, she saw 6-year-old Noah Sterling, Edward's son, sitting in his wheelchair, staring at a model spaceship with those big, curious eyes that reminded her of her late brother Jamal. Noah had been born with a spinal condition, his legs useless despite his dad's millions spent on specialists from places like Johns Hopkins. Lena had overheard the fights, Edward yelling at doctors over Zoom, demanding miracles. But what she saw in Noah was different. A kid with a spark, like Jamal, who'd fought his own battles with a smile until he passed 2 years ago. Lena crouched beside Noah, her voice soft, like she was sharing a secret. "Yo, little space cadet, you want to launch that rocket today?" she said, her Chicago drawl warm, teasing. Noah grinned, his hands clutching the toy tighter. She'd been sneaking in time to read about physical therapy on her phone, scouring free online courses and YouTube tutorials after shifts, piecing together tricks she'd used with Jamal, gentle stretches, games to wake up sleeping muscles. "Let's make it fun," she told Noah, guiding his legs through small movements, turning it into a mission. "Captain Noah, we're landing on Mars." She hummed a goofy tune, mimicking rocket sounds, and Noah giggled, his toes twitching just a bit. "This kid's got fight," she thought, her heart swelling. "Maybe I can actually help him." For a second, she forgot the weight of her own past, dropping out of kinesiology studies when the money ran out, her mom's stories of being pushed out of nursing for not fitting in. She thought she could make a difference here, in this cold, perfect house. Then the front door slammed open and Edward Sterling barreled in, his face twisted like a storm cloud. "Get out, you lazy black scrubber!" he roared, his voice cutting through the rain's soft patter like a knife through butter. "What the hell are you doing to my son?" Lena froze, her hands still steadying Noah's shaky legs, the boy wobbling with effort. Edward's words landed like punches, each one laced with venom, his eyes blazing with disgust as he grabbed a glass pitcher from a side table and hurled water across her face. The cold stung like a slap, soaking her uniform, dripping down her neck like shame made liquid. "You're hired to clean, not play doctor with my kid," he snapped, his tone dripping with that rich man's scorn, the kind that saw Lena's skin and job as proof she was nothing. The nanny and a cook hovered in the doorway, their faces a mix of shock and fear, but they stayed silent, their glances darting away like they didn't want to catch the fallout. The room felt like it was closing in, the rain outside a mocking echo of the water running down Lena's cheeks. Her pulse hammered, the humiliation burning deep, like the time she overheard her mom crying after losing her job to cutbacks that only hit the black staff. She wanted to yell back, to tell Edward she'd studied movement science, that she'd spent nights teaching herself therapy techniques to honor Jamal's memory. But Noah's small hand grabbed hers, his voice trembling. "Lena helped me, Daddy. She's my friend." The words were a lifeline, small but fierce, and Lena swallowed hard, forcing her voice to stay steady. "Mr. Sterling, I was just trying to get Noah moving a little, she said, calm as a lake before a storm. He wiggled his toes today. That's a start, right? Edward laughed, a sharp, cruel sound. You helping my son? Don't be ridiculous. Grab your stuff and get out before I have you escorted. The staff shifted uncomfortably, but no one spoke up. Noah's eyes filled with tears, his voice cracking. Don't make her go. For a split second, Edward's face softened, a flicker of doubt breaking through his rage, but he shook it off, pointing to the door. Now. Lena stood, her fingers brushing the silver locket around her neck, Jamal's tiny photo inside like a quiet anchor. She thought she'd left behind the sting of being dismissed, of being reduced to her job or her skin. I thought I could do something real here, she told herself, the cold water seeping into her bones. Guess I was wrong. But as she grabbed her bag, Noah's soft sob followed her, and a small, unexpected note slipped from her pocket, a crumpled post-it from the nanny, scribbled fast. You're onto something with him. Don't give up. It was a tiny spark, a stranger's belief in her, rooted in that Chicago grit where neighbors quietly root for each other. Lena tucked it away, her resolve hardening. This isn't over, she thought, stepping into the rain, the locket warm against her chest. She wasn't just fighting for herself anymore. Noah's spark was hers to protect, and she'd be damned if she let Edward's words be the last ones. The rain pattered softly against the tall windows of the Sterling family's lakefront mansion in suburban Chicago, a sprawling estate of glass and stone that screamed wealth and untouchability. Inside, Lena Jackson, a young black housekeeper, moved quietly through her tasks, her sneakers squeaking faintly on the polished oak floors. At 26, Lena was used to blending into the background, dusting shelves, folding linens, keeping the Sterling's world pristine while staying invisible. But today, something pulled her out of that shadow. In the sunroom, 6-year-old Noah Sterling sat in his wheelchair, his small hands gripping a toy rocket, his legs still and lifeless beneath a blanket. Born with a spinal injury, Noah had never walked, despite his father Edward Sterling's millions spent on top-tier specialists from MIT and Mayo Clinic. Lena had overheard the hushed arguments between Edward and his staff. Robotics, experimental drugs, nothing worked. But she saw something else in Noah, a spark in his eyes, a quiet determination that reminded her of her late brother Jamal, who'd fought his disability with grit and laughter before passing 2 years ago. Lena knelt beside Noah, her voice soft as she pointed to the rocket. "Hey, little astronaut, want to try something new today?" she asked, her Chicago lilt warm and teasing. Noah's face lit up, his giggle cutting through the sterile air. She'd been reading about physical therapy techniques on her cracked phone screen at night, piecing together ideas from podcasts and old textbooks she'd kept from her days as a med school hopeful before money ran dry and dreams got shelved. Using what she'd learned caring for Jamal, Lena gently massaged Noah's legs, guiding him through a game of rocket launch, encouraging tiny movements with silly sound effects. 3, 2, 1, blast off, she cheered as Noah wiggled his toes, his grin wide enough to break her heart. For a moment she thought, maybe I can help this kid. Maybe I know something they don't. But then the glass door slammed open and Edward Sterling stormed in, his face a mask of rage. "Get out, you lazy black scrubber! What the hell are you doing to my son?" The words hit like a slap, raw and venomous, slicing through the rain-soaked quiet. Lena froze, her hands still steadying Noah, who wobbled with effort. Edward's eyes narrowed with disgust as he grabbed a nearby watering can and splashed cold water across Lena's face, the droplets stinging like tiny needles. "You're a cleaner, not a doctor. You think you can touch my son with those hands?" His voice dripped with contempt, the kind that came from years of unchecked privilege, the kind that saw Lena as nothing more than her job title and skin color. The household staff peeked from the hallway, their whispers a low hum of shock and pity, but no one stepped forward.
Lena's heart pounded, the water dripping down her neck, soaking her uniform, but she didn't flinch. She wanted to scream back, to tell him she'd studied kinesiology for 2 years before life kicked her down, that she'd spent nights poring over research to honor Jamal's memory. But she saw Noah's wide, scared eyes, his small hand clutching her sleeve, and she swallowed the fire in her throat. "Mr. Sterling, I was just trying to help Noah feel stronger," she said, her voice steady, almost too calm, like she was reasoning with a storm. "He moved his toes today. That's something, isn't it?" Edward scoffed, a cruel edge to his laugh. "You help my son? Don't make me laugh. Pack your things and get out before I call security." Noah's voice broke through, small but piercing. "Lena helped me, Daddy. She's my friend." The boy's words hung in the air, fragile but defiant, and for a split second, Edward's face faltered, a flicker of doubt crossing his features. But he shook it off, pointing to the door. "Now." As Lena stood, her fingers brushed the worn silver locket around her neck, a gift from Jamal with his tiny photo inside, his smile frozen at 10 years old. She thought she'd left behind the pain of being dismissed, of being reduced to nothing because of her skin or her paycheck. But standing there, drenched and humiliated, she felt that old wound rip open. "I thought I could make a difference here," she told herself, "but maybe I was wrong." Yet, as she walked toward the door, Noah's quiet sob echoed behind her, and she clutched the locket tighter. Something in her whispered that this wasn't the end. Not for her, not for Noah, and definitely not for the truth she carried inside, waiting for the right moment to shine. Things were humming along in that uneasy way after Lena came back to the Sterling mansion, with Noah's progress lighting up like fireworks, slow at first but undeniable. She'd sneak in those VR sessions during his playtime, turning what used to be frustrating therapy into epic adventures, like racing through virtual Chicago streets to the beat of local drill tracks, his legs twitching more each day. Edward kept his distance mostly, nodding approval here and there, but still carrying that lingering doubt, like he couldn't fully shake the idea that a former housekeeper had cracked what his high-paid experts couldn't. "It's working, Dad," Noah would say excitedly over breakfast, flexing his toes under the table. But Edward would just mutter, "We'll see," his mind torn between gratitude and the ego bruise of admitting he'd been wrong. Lena felt it too, that undercurrent of tension, but she poured everything into Noah, thinking, "This kid's smile is worth swallowing my pride." She even started sharing bits of her method anonymously on a Reddit thread for parents of disabled kids, getting upvotes from strangers who called her ideas game changers, which boosted her quietly at night when she'd crash exhausted on her couch, scrolling through comments like, "This sounds like something from a TED Talk. Thanks, OP."
But trouble was brewing, the kind that sneaks up like a storm on Lake Michigan. Vivian, Edward's sharp-tongued sister with her designer bags and her spot on the company board, had been sniffing around Lena's past like a bloodhound. One evening, while Edward was out at a networking event, Vivian holed up in her home office, a sleek setup overlooking the city skyline, and did what she did best, dig for dirt. She'd always seen herself as the family guardian, motivated by that cold, protective instinct born from growing up in wealth, where outsiders were threats to the Sterling name. Hacking wasn't her style, but she had connections, a tech guy from the company who owed her a favor. And soon she was staring at old emails from Lena's inbox, leaked through some shady data breach forum. There it was. Proof that Lena's mom, a dedicated nurse, had been let go from Sterling Medical years ago on trumped-up charges of incompetence, but really because of a whispered complaint about her attitude from a white supervisor. Classic covert racism that Vivian knew deep down but chose to ignore. "Gotcha," Vivian whispered to herself, her lips curling in that satisfied smirk, her heart not racing with guilt but with triumph. She fired off a TikTok video that night, slickly edited with dramatic music and text overlays. When the help turns vengeful, my family's nightmare with a grudge-holding nanny out for revenge. Hashtag family drama, hashtag beware. It went viral in their elite circles, racking up views from Chicago's high society, with comments like, "That's scary, protect your kids," and "typical entitlement from the wrong side of town." Vivian's motive was crystal clear: keep the family pure, eliminate any stain like Lena. But underneath, there was a flicker of insecurity. Fear that Lena's success made her look foolish for pushing the fancy gadgets that failed. Lena woke up to her phone buzzing like crazy the next morning, notifications flooding in from friends who'd seen the TikTok. "What the hell is this?" one texted, linking the video. Her stomach dropped as she watched, the accusations hitting like punches. "She's using my nephew to get back at us for firing her mom." Lena's hands shook, but she didn't cry, not yet. Instead, she felt that old fire ignite, the one from her mom's stories about fighting unfair dismissals in the 90s, echoing the broader struggles she'd heard at BLM rallies in the city. She's twisting everything, Lena thought, pacing her small apartment, but she doesn't know half of it. She could have fired back online, gone viral herself with the truth, but she held back, focusing on Noah. Don't let her win by stooping, she told herself, channeling that Midwestern resilience her grandma always preached. Keep grinding, let action speak. Edward called later that day, his voice hesitant over the line. "Lena, about Vivian's post, is there any truth to it?" He was torn, his paternal protectiveness clashing with the growing evidence of Lena's skill, but doubt crept in like fog off the lake. "Mr. Sterling, your sister can say what she wants," Lena replied evenly, her tone steady despite the hurt boiling inside. "I'm here for Noah, not revenge. But yeah, my mom got screwed by your company. Doesn't mean I'm out to destroy you." Edward went quiet, the silence heavy, his mind wrestling with the family legacy he'd always defended blindly. The explosion came at the annual Sterling Medical Conference, a glitzy affair at a downtown Chicago hotel, packed with investors, doctors, and tech whizzes in sharp suits, the air buzzing with talks of AI in healthcare and startup pitches over craft cocktails. Edward had invited Lena reluctantly, figuring she'd demo her VR setup for Noah in a side room to impress potential partners, his way of testing if her method held up under scrutiny. Vivian was there too, schmoozing the crowd, her TikTok still fresh in everyone's feeds, whispering to a cluster of board members, "See, that's the girl. Trouble waiting to happen." Lena felt the stares as she set up the VR gear, her nerves jangling, but she pushed through for Noah, who was excited in his wheelchair, clutching a Chicago Cubs cap she'd given him. "Ready to show him, buddy?" she asked, ruffling his hair. The demo started small, Noah slipping on the goggles, the room filling with the upbeat hum of a Chance the Rapper track synced to the virtual world. "Go for it, Noah. Walk to Wrigley Field," Lena coached, her voice calm but electric. And then it happened. Noah's legs moved, not just twitches, but 10 solid steps forward, his face beaming as the crowd gasped. Edward, watching from the front, froze, his coffee cup slipping from his hand. "Oh my God," he whispered, his world tilting. The son he'd feared would never walk was striding in that digital park, real muscles firing thanks to Lena's hack. The room erupted in murmurs, but Vivian jumped in, her face flushing red. "This is a setup. She's manipulating him. Probably drugged the kid or something. Her mom's firing was justified. This is payback." Her voice cracked with desperation, her cold facade crumbling as heads turned. Edward spun on her, his eyes blazing. "Enough, Vivian. I pulled the old files last night. Mom's firing? It was bullshit. Pure discrimination to cut costs on diversity hires. And Lena? She was our intern back then, top of her class, until we yanked her scholarship for budget reasons. The same biased crap."
The revelation hit like a bombshell, gasps rippling through the audience, phones lighting up as people tweeted the drama. But Lena stepped forward, her voice cutting through the chaos. It's true, I lost everything because of decisions like that, but I didn't quit. I built this VR system myself, coding nights after shifts, blending AI from open source tools with what I learned caring for my brother. It's not revenge, it's proof that talent doesn't care about your last name or skin color. The room went dead silent, jaws dropping. Investors who'd whispered doubts now applauded, one black entrepreneur in the back yelling, "That's the American dream right there." Vivian stammered, her empire of lies collapsing, and security escorted her out as she shot Lena a glare of pure defeat. Edward, tears streaming down his face for the first time in years, dropped to his knees and hugged Lena. "I'm so sorry. I was wrong, Lena. You're a genius." His voice broke, the weight of his blindness crashing down, mixing shame with awe. Lena, her heart pounding but steady, helped him up, feeling a rush of pride she'd buried for too long. Finally, she thought, they see me. Noah, pulling off the goggles, beamed up at everyone. "Told you she's my superhero." The moment wasn't just a win, it was a reckoning, shaking Edward to his core and leaving the crowd buzzing about real change in a city that knew all too well about fighting for fairness. After the dust settled from that explosive demo at the conference, with Edward on his knees and the crowd buzzing like they'd just witnessed a miracle, Lena Jackson's world flipped in ways she never saw coming. She could have walked away right then, told Edward to shove his apologies, and gone back to slinging coffees on the South Side. But something deeper kept her rooted. Maybe it was Noah's beaming face, or that quiet voice inside saying, "You've earned this, girl. Don't let them take it now." Edward, still wiping tears as the hotel staff cleared the room, pulled her aside and said, "Lena, I want you leading a new program at Sterling Medical, Director of Pediatric Recovery Tech. Full salary, benefits, and all foot the bill for your online master's in health informatics. You've got the brains. Let's make it official." His voice cracked a bit, that mix of shame and genuine awe making him look smaller than the tech tycoon he was. Lena paused, her mind racing back to those nights coding alone, thinking of her mom's stories about getting canned. "All right, but this isn't charity," she replied, her tone firm but fair. "It's partnership, and we fix the crap that hurt people like my mom. No more biased cuts." Edward nodded, his regret palpable, like a man finally seeing the cracks in his perfect life. He was grappling with it all, the guilt gnawing at him for ignoring the signs of discrimination in his own company. But now it fueled a drive to rebuild, starting with her. Vivian, on the other hand, didn't go down easy. That TikTok stunt backfired hard. Lena's lawyers, hooked up through a pro bono group from a local ACLU chapter, slapped her with a defamation suit faster than you could say viral backlash. The video got flagged for hate speech, her board seat wobbled, and she lost her cushy consulting gig when sponsors pulled out, whispering about toxic family drama. Vivian spent days holed up in her high-rise condo, scrolling through hate comments like "Karma's a beast" and "Privilege check needed," her cold shell cracking under the weight. She'd always been driven by that fear of vulnerability, growing up watching their dad prioritize image over everything, but now it left her isolated, staring at old family photos and wondering where she'd gone wrong. One rainy evening, about a week later, Lena's phone lit up with a video call from an unknown number. She almost swiped ignore, but curiosity won. There was Vivian, no makeup, eyes puffy, looking like she'd aged a decade. "Lena, I need to say this," she stammered, her voice shaky, nothing like the polished viper from before. "What I did was wrong, twisted. I dug up your mom's file, saw the real reason she got fired. It was my dad's call back then to streamline by cutting risky hires. I knew it was BS, but I buried it to protect the family name. I'm sorry, for the post, for everything." Lena felt a surge of satisfaction, that sweet burn of justice, but also a twinge of pity. Vivian's confession revealed a woman haunted by her own upbringing, lashing out to hide the cracks. "Apology noted," Lena said coolly, "but words don't erase the hurt. Change your ways, or it's just noise." Vivian nodded, tears falling, and hung up, leaving Lena with a mix of closure and that nagging thought. People like her don't change overnight, but maybe this plants a seed.
Edward dove headfirst into redemption, like a guy who just dodged a midlife crisis by the skin of his teeth. He scrapped old HR policies that favored cultural fit over talent, replacing them with diversity audits inspired by Chicago's community orgs. "We're hosting workshops on unconscious bias," he announced at a company town hall, his voice steady but humble, starting with me owning up to my blind spots. He even partnered with a local group echoing Black Lives Matter vibes, funding STEM camps for underrepresented kids in the South Side neighborhoods Lena knew well. At home, things softened too. Edward joined the VR sessions, awkward at first in his button-down, fumbling the goggles while Noah laughed. "Dad, you're worse than me," the boy teased, his legs stronger now, kicking a soccer ball across the lawn in short bursts. Noah treated Lena like an aunt, slipping her drawings of them as a super team, whispering one afternoon, "Lena, I love you the most. You made me walk." It hit Lena right in the feels, that pure kid affection washing away the last bits of bitterness, making her think, this is what winning looks like. Not revenge, but real bonds. She started free classes at the community center, teaching her VR hacks to parents scraping by, turning her pain into a ripple effect that went viral on social media. Posts like "Chicago mom turns tragedy into tech triumph," racking up shares, inspiring young Black women to chase STEM dreams despite the odds. A small twist came when digging through her mom's old files for the lawsuit. Lena found a faded letter from a former colleague, a white nurse who'd quit in protest over the firing, writing, "Your mom's the best I ever worked with. Don't let them dim your light." It was a quiet validation, but then that same nurse, now retired, reached out via LinkedIn after seeing the conference buzz. "Honey, I believed in your family back then," she said in a surprise call, offering to testify and even donating to Lena's classes. It was that unexpected allyship, straight out of those American stories where strangers step up, that sealed Mina's sense of rebirth. Edward, hearing about it, finally let go of his last offenses, admitting over coffee one morning, "I was blind, Lena. Thought money fixed everything, but you showed me heart does." His admiration was real now, no more grudging nods, just a man reborn through humility. For Lena, it was all coming full circle, from victim to leader. Her journey not just personal, but a beacon for folks grinding in the Windy City shadows, proving that rising up isn't about flashy wins, but quiet, steady change that touches lives. With the conference drama fading like yesterday's headlines, Lena Jackson stepped into her new role at Sterling Medical like she'd been waiting for it her whole life. But truth be told, it felt surreal, like winning the lottery after years of scratching by on scratch-offs. She dove into directing the pediatric recovery program, her days filled with tweaking VR setups and training staff, her nights buzzing with online classes for that master's degree Edward was bankrolling. No strings, just his way of making amends without saying it outright. "You're killing it, Lena," he'd say over quick lunches in the company cafeteria, his tone softer now, like a guy who'd stared down his own demons and blinked first. Edward was still wrestling with the fallout, that deep-seated regret turning into action. He'd pore over old company files late at night, his face lined with the weight of realizing how many folks like Lena's mom had been pushed out for efficiency reasons that smelled like bias. It gnawed at him, motivating him to overhaul things, not just for show, but because Noah's steps had shown him money alone couldn't fix a broken system or a hardened heart. Edward, hearing about it, finally let go of his last defenses, admitting over coffee one morning, "I was blind, Lena. Thought money fixed everything, but you showed me heart does." His admiration was real now, no more grudging nods, just a man reborn through humility. For Lena, it was all coming full circle, from victim to leader, her journey not just personal, but a beacon for folks grinding in the Windy City shadows, proving that rising up isn't about flashy wins, but quiet, steady change that touches lives. Vivian, meanwhile, was licking her wounds in ways that surprised even her. The lawsuit hit her wallet hard, a six-figure settlement that forced her to sell off some stocks. But it was the isolation that really stung. Her high society friends ghosting her invites to galas and brunches, whispering about that messy family feud. She'd always been the ice queen, driven by a fear of losing status ingrained from their dad's cutthroat business lessons. But now, staring at her empty calendar, she felt the cold truth. Her actions had isolated her more than any outsider ever could. One afternoon, about a month later, Lena got a package at the office. No return address, just a handwritten note inside. "I was wrong, and it cost me everything. Use this for your program." Enclosed was a check for 10 grand, signed by Vivian. Lena stared at it, a mix of satisfaction and unexpected empathy bubbling up. Vivian's gesture wasn't full redemption, but it hinted at a woman finally cracking under her own armor, maybe starting to see the human cost of her games. "Well, damn," Lena muttered to herself, tucking it away, thinking, even ice melts eventually. Edward channeled his turnaround into something bigger, like a man on a mission to rewrite his story. He partnered with local orgs inspired by Chicago's rich history of civil rights pushes, think echoes of the Obama Community Center vibes, and funded free STEM workshops for kids from diverse backgrounds, hosting them in Southside gyms where Lena had volunteered. "This is about more than tech," he'd say at kickoff events, his voice raw with humility. "It's about seeing potential where I once saw nothing." At home, the changes were quieter but just as real. Edward ditched his endless meetings to join Noah's sessions, laughing as the boy, now toddling short distances without the VR, chased a ball across the yard. "You're my champ, kiddo," he'd tell Noah, ruffling his hair, his pride swelling like a dad's at a Little League game. Noah, blooming with confidence, treated Lena like family, slipping her handmade cards that said, "Super Lena saves the day," in crayon. "I love you most," he'd whisper during hugs, melting away the last shards of Lena's old hurts, making her reflect, "This is healing, not just for him, but for me too." A little curveball came during one of those workshops when Lena uncovered an old company memo in the archives, her mom's glowing performance review, stamped "terminated" with a note about team fit. It could have reopened wounds, but instead a surprise ally emerged, an ex-employee, a Latina engineer who'd quit after similar BS, emailed Lena after seeing a local news clip on the program. "I believed in fair play back then," she wrote, attaching proof of the biased policies and offering to mentor at the camps. It was that random boost, straight out of those American tales where underdogs link arms across divides, that solidified Lena's rebirth. She expanded her classes, turning community centers into hubs where kids coded their own VR games, her story spreading like wildfire on podcasts and Insta Reels, from fired housekeeper to tech trailblazer. Edward, inspired, confessed over a backyard barbecue one summer evening, "I thought success was solo, Lena, but you taught me it's about lifting others." His admiration was genuine now, a far cry from his old arrogance. For Lena, it all clicked into place. From pain to purpose, her path a testament to Chicago's resilient spirit, proving that true change isn't flashy, it's the quiet work that builds bridges and mends what's broken. The real wrap-up hit at a community block party in the heart of the South Side, the kind of event with grills smoking ribs, kids splashing in fire hydrants, and DJs spinning old-school house music, pure Chicago summer joy. Lena, Edward, and Noah were there as guests of honor, Noah demoing his VR gear on a makeshift stage, striding virtually through a digital Millennium Park while the crowd cheered. "Look at me go," he yelled, his real legs kicking freely now, symbolizing that freedom from chains nobody sees coming. Edward took the mic, his voice steady but emotional. "I learned the hard way. Value ain't in skin or status, it's in what you give. That's the real American dream for all of us." He announced a new fund for multi-ethnic disabled kids, tying it to stories like Lena's, his hope shining through the remorse. Lena watched, pride swelling as she thought of Jamal, her startup buzzing with investors, her ties to the Sterlings now like family. She smiled at Noah's laughter, whispering to herself, "We've come far, but the best is ahead." It left everyone with that warm, thoughtful glow, reminding us prejudice blocks the way, but heart and hustle clear it, paving roads for equality and dreams that anyone can chase.